good picture. So.
Good start?
Yep.
Okay. These aren't necessarily funny things, but they're sort of bizarre. And there are two of them, and they're both related to fights, which we don't have anymore, it seems like, hardly ever. But in the good old days, I guess, they were the good old days, one day under a former principal, we had a very bad day where there was a fight in the main lobby, and then people related to that fight started fighting about 2 periods later, and it was a gigantic, I don't know, there were 6 or 7 fights going on all at once. We got all of the students separated, but the bizarre thing happened when the parents, parents are called, and they all came up, and we hustled this one family out, and I was walking them out to the jock lot, and the mother, I think, started yelling at another mother whose children had also been involved, and then it was like trying to keep the parents apart, and I'm just saying, get in the car, and every time I would say that, the other woman would yell something at the person I was closest to. And finally, one of the police that had already been called and were still in the building came out and sort of helped to hustle them through. But it was the parents that were so bizarre. And the other incident was under a former assistant principal who's no longer here, was a woman, and she was very good. I liked her a lot. But she was in what is now Mr. Jesperson's office, and I happened to come into the office, and Mrs. Hanrahan, who's the secretary, said to me, "Chip, I think you'd better get in there," and the door was closed. And I thought later that she was a master of understatement. I think you better get in there, because what was happening was that she had been talking to a father and his son, and the father and son got into a big physical brawl, and then they had knocked over, a plant had been knocked over on the floor. They were entangled with each other, and Mrs. Thomas, who was the assistant principal, was literally sort of trying to hide in the corner of that office and get as far away as possible. These are big guys. They were throwing each other around, and we got them, help separate them and calm things down. But it was so bizarre to see them rolling around in this office, just knocking everything over. And Mrs. Hanrahan's, "I think you'd better get in there." So that was funny. And then the third, it was just a funny thing. Kids call in all the time to try to excuse themselves, as you probably know or probably have heard. And one day, this boy, who was notorious for skipping class anyway, he's just graduated, but he called in and said, this is not his real name, but he said in his voice, "Hi, this is Thomas's mother. Please," and then he went, "Oh crap," or some words to that effect. "This is Thomas's mother. Oh crap," and hung up. So he was so hosed, and they recorded it, of course, and played it over and over again, and it was so perfect, because he would be the one that would screw something like that up. So those are a couple of bizarre things that have happened, weird things that happen at City High School. The other thing that's like herding cats is doing the homecoming parade, which I've done for a number of years now. And at some point, you can organize all you want to, but then when they're gathering in Mercer Park over there with kids, being dropped off by parents, and they're trying to find their place in the parade, and there are over 1,000 people that march in that parade, and at some point it just gets silly. It just takes on a life of its own and kind of moves down the road. And it's always fun to see that sort of come together there's a fair amount of organization the Student Senate does, but still, it's a crapshoot that thing goes as smoothly as it always has. So that's what I remember.